I never believed in fate until the night I solved a puzzle on a napkin and felt the entire room go silent. It was a Tuesday, the kind of unremarkable evening where the city hummed with its usual chaos, and I sat tucked into the corner booth of Vincenzo's, a restaurant far too expensive for my graduate student budget, but my best friend Marina had insisted. Her family owned the place, and she'd pulled me there to celebrate my thesis defense with champagne I couldn't pronounce and pasta that melted on my tongue. "You're too serious, Alara." Marina laughed, refilling my glass. "One night. Just enjoy it." But my mind was already elsewhere. While she chatted about her latest dating disaster, I'd absently pulled out a pen and started working on the cryptography problem that had been haunting me for weeks. The napkin became my canvas: numbers, symbols, patterns flowing from muscle memory. It was a mathematical riddle my professor had mentioned in passing, something about an unsolvable sequence that had stumped researchers for decades. I didn't notice when Marina stopped talking. I didn't notice when the ambient conversation around us dimmed. I only noticed when a shadow fell across my table, and a voice like smoke and midnight spoke directly behind me. "You just solved the Marconi sequence." My pen froze. The voice wasn't a question, it was a statement, heavy with something I couldn't name. Authority, danger, certainty. I turned slowly, and the world tilted. He stood there in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my entire year's tuition, his presence commanding every molecule of air in the room. Dark hair swept back, sharp jawline, and eyes God. Those eyes the color of storm clouds before lightning strikes. He wasn't looking at the napkin. He was looking at me, with an intensity that made my breath catch somewhere between my lungs and my throat. "I what?" I managed, hating how small my voice sounded. "The sequence." He gestured to my scribbled napkin, with one hand, the other resting casually in his pocket. Rings glinted on his fingers, heavy, ornate, the kind that left impressions. "Mathematicians have been working on that problem for 30 years. You just cracked it in." He glanced at his watch. A sleek piece of machinery that could have bought a car. 17 minutes. Marina had gone completely still beside me, her face drained of color. That's when I noticed the restaurant. Every table had quieted. Waitstaff had retreated to the walls. And there were men, broad-shouldered, cold-eyed men positioned at every exit. It's just a puzzle," I said, my academic brain trying to process while my survival instincts screamed that something was very, very wrong. "Nothing is just anything." He pulled out the chair across from me, didn't ask, simply claimed the space and sat with the fluid grace of a predator settling before a meal. Alara Thorne, 26, doctoral candidate in applied cryptography at Westbridge University, graduated summa cum laude. Lives alone in a 4th-floor walk-up on Amsterdam Avenue. Drinks black coffee, runs every morning at 6, and has no idea that the theoretical puzzle you just solved contains the encryption key to a network worth $300 million. Ice flooded my veins. "How do you—" "I make it my business to know everything." He leaned back, and I caught the glint of something metallic beneath his jacket. A gun. He was wearing a gun in the middle of a crowded restaurant, and no one seemed surprised. The question is, why does a brilliant mathematician waste her time in academia when her skills are worth so much more? "Who are you?" My hands trembled, so I pressed them flat against the table. "Dante Luciano." He said it like I should know, like the name itself was a weapon. And then I remembered. Whispers. News reports quickly buried. The name that surfaced when organized crime was mentioned in hushed tones by people who knew better than to speak too loudly. The Luciano family controlled half the city's underground money laundering, smuggling, protection rackets. And sitting across from me, looking at me like I was an equation he intended to solve, was the man who controlled it all. I should go." I started to stand, but his hand moved across the table, not touching me, but the gesture alone froze me in place. "Sit." One word. Absolute. "And God help me." I sat. "I'm not interested in whatever you think I can do for you," I said, trying to inject steel into my voice. "I'm a student. I solve theoretical problems. That's all." "That's never all." His gaze dropped to the napkin, then back to my face, studying me with unnerving focus. "You see patterns others miss. You find solutions where none exist. That's not theory, Alara. That's power." He paused, and something shifted in his expression, something almost human beneath the ice. And power, in the right hands, changes everything. "I'm not interested in your world. You're already in it." He gestured subtly, and one of his men approached, placed a folder on the table between us. 3 days ago, someone stole data from one of my operations, encrypted with a sequence similar to what you just solved. I have people, very expensive people, who couldn't crack it. Yet you did it on a napkin while drinking wine. I stared at the folder like it might explode. That's not my problem. It is now. He opened it, revealing photographs, grainy, surveillance-style images of people I didn't recognize. Because whoever encrypted that data knows about you. They've been watching, waiting to see if anyone could solve what they created. He slid one photo toward me, and my blood turned to winter. It was me, leaving my apartment, entering the university, sitting in this very restaurant, taken from across the street through the window. Someone had been following me. Why? The word barely made it past my lips. Because brilliance is rare, and in my world, rare things are either protected. His eyes locked onto mine, something dark and possessive, flickering there, or destroyed. The restaurant felt like it was closing in, the walls pressing closer. You're trying to scare me. I'm trying to save you. He stood, buttoning his jacket with practiced efficiency, and suddenly I could breathe again almost. You have 2 choices, Alara. Come with me now. Let me keep you safe while you help me identify who's targeting both of us. Or walk out that door and hope they're kinder than I am when they find you. That's not a choice. That's a threat. It's reality. He extended his hand, an invitation, a command, a promise wrapped in danger. I don't have time for pretty lies. Someone wants what you know. I want to make sure you survive long enough to use it. Marina grabbed my wrist, her voice urgent and terrified. Alara, don't. Please. Just do what he says. I looked at Dante Luciano, at the man whose name made grown men flinch, whose world was built on violence and shadows, and saw something I didn't expect. Beneath the ruthless exterior, in the barely perceptible tension around his eyes, I saw concern. Real, human concern. How do I know you won't hurt me? I whispered. His jaw tightened. You don't. But I've never lied to protect someone's feelings, and I won't start now. You're valuable. That makes you mine to protect. And I protect what's mine. The possessiveness in that statement should have terrified me. Instead, it sent a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with fear. I stood, my legs unsteady, my mind screaming that this was insane. I looked at the napkin, at the innocent puzzle that had unraveled my entire life, and I placed my hand in Dante Luciano's. His fingers closed around mine, warm, strong, absolute, and he pulled me toward the door, toward his world, toward a darkness I didn't understand but could already feel consuming me. As we stepped into the night, he leaned close, his breath against my ear sending electricity down my spine. Welcome to your new life, Alara. Try not to solve any more puzzles. They tend to get people killed. And then the glass behind us shattered in an explosion of gunfire. The world exploded into chaos and glass. Dante's arm locked around my waist, yanking me down as bullets tore through the restaurant's front window. I hit the pavement hard, his body covering mine, the weight of him pressing me into cold concrete while screams erupted behind us. Stay down! His voice was a command, absolute and unbreakable. I couldn't have moved if I wanted to. Terror had turned my limbs to stone, my mind struggling to process the violence erupting around me. This wasn't theoretical. This wasn't numbers on a page. This was real gunfire. Breaking glass, the acrid smell of gunpowder burning my nostrils. Dante moved with lethal precision, his hand pulling the weapon from his jacket in one fluid motion. He fired 3 shots into the darkness across, the street's sharp cracks that made my ears ring, and somewhere in the shadows, someone screamed. Russo! Get her to the car! He barked. A massive figure appeared beside us, one of the men I'd seen inside the restaurant. He grabbed my arm with surprising gentleness considering his size, hauling me to my feet while Dante provided cover, his movements controlled and brutal. Move! Move! Russo pulled me toward a sleek black car idling at the curb, its door already open. I stumbled forward, my heels catching on the pavement, my academic brain trying desperately to make sense of senseless violence. Another spray of bullets hit the car's hood, sparks flying, and Russo shoved me inside with enough force to bruise. Dante slid in beside me a heartbeat later, slamming the door as the driver punched the accelerator. The car lurched forward, tires screaming, and I was thrown against Dante's chest as we careened around a corner. They knew. His voice was ice and fury. They knew exactly when. You'd be there. Who was that? I couldn't stop shaking, adrenaline making my teeth chatter. Confirmation that I was right. He holstered his gun, then turned to me, his hands gripping my shoulders. "Are you hurt?" I shook my head, unable to form words. His eyes, those storm-gray eyes, scanned my face, my arms, checking for injuries with an intensity that felt almost violent in its thoroughness. "Talk to me, Ilara." His voice dropped, became almost gentle. "I need to know you're not in shock. People were shooting at us. At me." The words tumbled out. "I solved a puzzle on a napkin, and now people are trying to kill me. This doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense. It makes perfect sense." He released me, his jaw tight. "Someone's been planning this. They planted that sequence where they knew it would catch your attention. They've been watching, waiting for you to solve it. And the moment you did, the moment they confirmed you're as brilliant as they, suspected they tried to eliminate you before I could secure you." "Secure me?" I laughed, the sound bordering on hysterical. "Like I'm some kind of asset?" "You are an asset." He said it matter-of-factly, no apology in his tone. "A dangerous one, and now everyone knows it." The car wove through the city streets, the driver taking turns with professional precision. I pressed myself against the leather seat, trying to slow my breathing, trying to think. "Where are you taking me?" "Somewhere safe." Dante pulled out his phone, typed something rapidly. "Somewhere they can't reach you while I figure out who orchestrated this. I want to go home." "Your home is compromised." He showed me his phone, a live security feed of my apartment building. 2 men in dark clothing stood across the street, watching my entrance. "They're waiting for you. They'll be waiting at the university, your friend's place, anywhere you might run." The trap closed around me, and for the first time, real fear cut through the shock. "What do you want from me?" He studied me for a long moment, and something shifted in his expression, something raw and unguarded that was gone before I could name it. "I want you alive. Everything else is negotiable." The car pulled through an iron gate, tires crunching on gravel. I looked out at a mansion that seemed to rise out of the darkness itself, stone and shadows, illuminated by lights that made it look like a fortress, pretending to be a home. "This is mine." Dante opened the door, extending his hand. "Welcome to the Luciano estate, Ilara. For better or worse, this is your sanctuary now." I didn't take his hand. I climbed out on my own, my legs still unsteady, and stared up at the building that would become my prison. Because that's what this was, no matter how he framed it. Protection was just another word for captivity. Russo and 3 other men formed a perimeter around us as Dante led me up the stone steps. The front door opened before we reached it, revealing an older woman with sharp eyes and graying hair pulled into a severe bun. "Mr. Luciano, we weren't expecting. Prepare the East Wing, guest suite, and have Dr. Chen come immediately." His hand found the small of my back, guiding me forward. "This is Ilara Thorne. She's under my personal protection. No one, and I mean no one, gets near her without my authorization." The woman's eyes widened fractionally, but she nodded. "Of course, sir." Inside, the mansion was all dark wood and expensive art, the kind of place that belonged in magazines about lives I'd never live. Dante led me through hallways that seemed to stretch forever, finally stopping at a door that opened onto a suite larger than my entire apartment. "You'll stay here. Everything you need will be provided." He moved to the window, checking the locks, the sightlines, his tactical mind cataloging vulnerabilities. "Don't try to leave. My men are under strict orders to keep you safe, which means keeping you. So, I'm a prisoner. You're protected." He turned back to me, and the intensity in his gaze made my breath catch. "There's a difference. Not from where I'm standing." He crossed the space between us in 3 strides, and suddenly he was too close, his presence overwhelming, his hand lifting to cut my jaw with surprising gentleness. "From where you're standing, you're alive. 20 people in that restaurant tonight, you think you survived by accident? You think that car pulled up exactly when needed by coincidence?" His thumb brushed my cheekbone, and I hated how my body responded to the touch. "I've been planning for this moment since the second I saw what you could do. I knew they'd come for you, and I made sure I'd be there first." "Why?" The question came out as a whisper. "Why do you care?" Something dark and possessive flashed across his face. "Because brilliance like yours doesn't belong to men who'd waste it. It doesn't belong to people who'd destroy you to keep their secrets." His hand dropped, but his eyes held mine captive. "It belongs to someone who understands exactly how rare and dangerous you are. And that's you? That's me." No hesitation, no doubt. A knock at the door broke the moment. A middle-aged man in glasses entered, carrying a medical bag. "Mr. Luciano, you called for me? Check her for injuries. Make sure she's not in shock." Dante stepped back, the ruthless businessman returning. "I'll be in my study. Ilara, don't do anything stupid." The men outside this door answer only to me, and their orders are very simple. Keep you alive. Keep you here. He left without waiting for my response, the door closing with a finality that made my chest tight. The doctor, Dr. Chen, approached with professional kindness. "Let's take a look at you, shall we?" But I barely heard him. My mind was racing, analyzing, trying to understand the equation I'd become part of. Dante Luciano had inserted himself into my life with the precision of someone who'd been watching, planning, waiting. He'd known I'd be at that restaurant. He'd known what I could do. And now I was trapped in his world, surrounded by his men, claimed by his protection. The terrifying part wasn't that I was his prisoner. The terrifying part was that when he'd touched my face, when he'd looked at me with that dark possessiveness, some traitorous part of me had wanted to lean into it. "Doctor," Chen cleared his throat. "Miss Thorne? Your arm, you're bleeding." I looked down. He was right. A shard of glass had cut through my sleeve, leaving a thin line of red across my forearm. I hadn't even felt it. Just like I hadn't felt the moment my ordinary life ended and this dangerous new existence began. But I felt it now, the sting, the reality, the inescapable truth. I was Dante Luciano's prisoner. And God help me, I wasn't sure I wanted to escape. I didn't sleep. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw shattered glass and muzzle flashes, heard the crack of gunfire echoing in my skull. The guest suite was beautiful, all silk sheets and antique furniture, but it felt like a gilded cage. I checked the windows. Locked, the door, guarded. Even the attached bathroom had no escape route. Just marble and luxury and absolutely no way out. By the time dawn broke, painting the sky in shades of blood orange, I'd given up pretending. I showered, found clothes in the closet that fit perfectly, which should have been comforting but was actually terrifying. Because it meant Dante had planned this, had known my size, had prepared for my captivity, and ventured out into the hallway. The guard outside my door straightened immediately. Young, professional, with dead eyes that had seen too much. "Miss Thorne, you need something? Coffee, food, answers." I crossed my arms. "In that order." He spoke into a radio, and within minutes, another guard appeared to escort me. They didn't touch me, didn't threaten me, but their presence was a constant reminder. I wasn't a guest. I was an asset under protection, which was just another form of control. The estate was even more impressive in daylight. We passed rooms filled with art that belonged in museums, a library that would make my university weep with envy, and finally entered a dining room where breakfast had been laid out like a feast. Dante sat at the head of the table, reading a tablet, a cup of black coffee steaming beside him. He'd changed into a different suit, charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, but he looked like he hadn't slept either. There was a tension in his shoulders, a tightness around his eyes that spoke of a long night. He glanced up when I entered, his gaze traveling over me in a way that made my skin heat. "You're awake. Hard to sleep when you're being held hostage." I sat at the far end of the table, deliberately putting distance between us. A smile ghosted across his lips, barely there, but I caught it. "You're not a hostage. Hostages have demands placed on them. You're free to do whatever you want within these walls. Except leave. Except leave." He set down the tablet. "For your own safety." "My safety? Or your convenience?" "Both." No apology. He gestured to the food. "Eat. You'll need your strength." "For what? More people trying to kill me?" "For answers." He stood, moving with that predatory grace, and came to sit in the chair beside me close enough that I could smell his cologne. Something dark and expensive. I spent the night tracking who orchestrated that attack. I have a name, Alessandro Moretti. The name meant nothing to me, but Dante's expression darkened. He's the head of a rival family, brilliant, ruthless, and obsessed with cryptography. For the past 5 years, he's been building an encrypted network communications, financial transfers, everything protected by codes he creates personally. Dante pulled up a photo on his tablet, showing a man in his 50s, distinguished and cold. 3 days ago, someone stole his encryption keys, codes worth hundreds of millions in protected assets, and the only way to recover them is to crack a mathematical sequence he designed to be unsolvable. Understanding dawned, cold and terrible. The sequence I solved. Exactly. Dante's jaw tightened. He planted it deliberately, released it into academic circles, underground forums, anywhere someone brilliant might see it. He was fishing for the one mind capable of solving what he created. And I took the bait. You solved the impossible, which means you're now the only person alive who can decrypt his entire network. Dante's hand moved to the table, inches from mine. Moretti wants you dead because if you can crack his sequence, you can crack everything he's built. But if I have you, you can destroy him. The pieces clicked into place. You can access his network, steal his assets, dismantle his entire operation. Yes. No hesitation, but only if you help me. I pulled back, my stomach churning. You want me to use my research, my skills, to help you commit crimes. I want you to use your brilliance to survive. His voice dropped, became almost gentle. Moretti won't stop, Ilara. He'll send more men, better men. He'll burn down everything you love to get to you. Your only chance, our only chance, is to beat him at his own game. By becoming like him? By being smarter than him. Dante's eyes locked onto mine, and I saw something there I didn't expect: respect. You don't belong in lecture halls teaching theories to students who'll never appreciate what you can do. You're wasted on academia. Your mind is a weapon, Ilara. The question is whether you'll let me teach you how to use it. I should have said no. Should have demanded he let me go. Called the police. Something. But the academic in me, the part that lived for impossible problems, was already intrigued. What exactly are you asking? Work with me. Decrypt Moretti's network. Help me identify his operations, his weaknesses. He leaned closer, and I could feel the heat of him, the dangerous magnetism. In return, I keep you safe. I give you resources no university could match. And when this is over, when Moretti is no longer a threat, you walk away with enough money to fund any research you want. Complete freedom. Or I become collateral damage when your enemies find me. Not while I'm breathing. The absolute certainty in his voice sent shivers down my spine. I protect what's mine, Ilara. And right now, you're mine. That possessiveness again. It should have repulsed me. Instead, it made something low in my belly tighten with dangerous heat. I need to think. Think fast. He stood, buttoning his jacket. Moretti knows you're here. He knows I'm protecting you. Which means he's planning his next move right now. We don't have the luxury of time. He started to leave, then paused at the door, looking back at me with an expression I couldn't read. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Sorry you got pulled into this. Sorry your brilliant mind made you a target, but I'm not sorry I found you first. His voice roughened. Because if Moretti had gotten to you, you'd already be dead. At least with me, you have a chance. Then he was gone, leaving me alone with impossible choices and dangerous thoughts. I poured myself coffee, my hands shaking slightly. Everything he'd said made a sick kind of sense. I was trapped, not just in this mansion, but in a situation with no good exits. Run, and Moretti would find me. Stay, and I'd become complicit in Dante's war. But there was a third option he hadn't mentioned. Solve the problem. My mind was already working, analyzing the pattern I'd seen on that napkin. If I could crack Moretti's sequence completely, understand not just the solution, but the methodology, I might be able to create a counter-encryption, something to protect myself, something to level the playing field. I pulled out my phone, which surprisingly still worked, though I suspected every call was monitored, and started sketching formulas on a napkin the staff had provided. Ironic, really. Another napkin, another puzzle. But this time, the stakes weren't theoretical. This time, the wrong answer meant death. I was so absorbed in the mathematics that I didn't notice when Dante returned, didn't hear him enter until he spoke directly behind me. You're already working on it. I jumped, my pen skittering across the napkin. He stood there, jacket removed, sleeves rolled to his elbows, looking at my work with something like admiration. I'm trying to understand the problem, I said defensively. That's not the same as agreeing to help you, isn't it? He moved closer, looking over my shoulder at the equation spreading across the napkin. You can't help yourself. You see a pattern, you need to solve it. It's not about right or wrong for you. It's about the pure satisfaction of finding the answer. He was right, and I hated that he understood me so clearly. Tell me about him, I heard myself say. About Moretti. If I'm going to do this, and I'm not saying I am, I need to understand who created this sequence. The mathematics don't exist in a vacuum. They're an expression of thought, of personality. Dante pulled out a chair, sat beside me, close enough that our shoulders almost touched. Alessandro Moretti is a sadist wrapped in sophistication. He doesn't just want to win, he wants you to know you've lost. Wants to watch you break. He's been building his empire for 20 years. And every piece is protected by codes so complex, most people don't even try to crack them. But you did. I tried. I failed. The admission clearly cost him. I'm good with numbers, strategy, seeing 10 moves ahead. But pure mathematics like this, it's beyond me. That's why when I saw you solve that sequence, I knew. He stopped, jaw tightening. Knew what? His eyes met mine, and the intensity there stole my breath. Knew you were the answer I'd been looking for. The weapon I needed. The one person who could shift the balance of power in this city. I'm not a weapon. No. His hand lifted, fingers brushing a strand of hair from my face in a gesture so gentle it contradicted everything I knew about him. You're so much more dangerous than that. The touch lingered, and neither of us moved. The air between us crackled with tension, fear, and fascination mixing into something I didn't want to name. Then his phone buzzed, shattering the moment. He checked it, his expression darkening. What is it? Moretti just made his move. He stood abruptly. He's taken someone you care about. My blood went cold. Who? He showed me the screen. A photo of Marina, bound to a chair, terror in her eyes, a message typed below. Trade. The girl for your friend. Midnight. Come alone. The napkin crumpled in my fist as rage and fear warred inside me. I'm going, I said, my voice shaking. No. She's there because of me. Because I solved that damn puzzle. Which is exactly why you're not going. Dante's hand caught my wrist. Firm, but not painful. It's a trap, Ilara. He wants you emotional, reckless. He wants you to walk right into his hands. So we just leave her? No. His eyes hardened into something absolutely lethal. We make him regret he ever touched someone under my protection. But we do it my way. Smart, strategic. His grip tightened fractionally. Trust me. I looked at this man, this dangerous, ruthless criminal who held my life in his hands and made a choice that would change everything. Okay, I whispered. I trust you. The words hung between us, weighted with more than either of us acknowledged. Dante's expression shifted, something vulnerable flickering across his face, before the mask returned. Then let's go to war. The planning room was pure tactical efficiency screens covering one wall, showing surveillance feeds, maps of the city marked with territories, and a table covered in weapons that made my stomach turn. Dante stood at the center of it all, transformed. Gone was the man who'd touched my face with gentleness. This was the Mafia Boss, cold, calculated, absolute in his authority as he directed his men with precision that spoke of experience with violence. Moretti's holding her at the old textile factory in Red Hook. He tapped a location on the map. 3 exits, 2 levels, heavy guard presence. He's expecting either a trade or a tactical assault. His eyes found mine across the room. We're giving him neither. Russo leaned forward. What's the play, boss? Distraction and extraction. Dante pulled up blueprints of the factory. Russo, you take Team Alpha through the south entrance. Make noise, draw their attention. Marco, Team Bravo hits the north quiet, unseen. You find Marina, you get her out. No heroics, no engagement, unless absolutely necessary. And you? Russo asked, though his expression said he already knew. I'm walking through the front door with exactly what Moretti wants. Dante's gaze locked onto me. Bait. Absolutely not. I stepped forward, my heart hammering. You said I wasn't going. You're not. I am. He moved around the table toward me. But he needs to think you are, which means I need you to help me sell the deception. He was standing too close again, invading my space in a way that made thinking difficult. How? Give me something of yours. Something that carries your scent, your presence. His hand lifted to my wrist, fingers tracing the delicate skin there. Something I can use to make him believe you're close enough to take. I pulled off the cardigan I'd been wearing, my hands shaking slightly as I handed it to him. This is insane. He'll see through it. He'll see what he expects to see, a man desperate to protect something valuable. Dante's fingers closed around the fabric, bringing it to his face briefly before tucking it inside his jacket. Arrogance makes people sloppy. Moretti thinks he's already won. That makes him vulnerable, or it makes you dead. Something softened in his expression. Worried about me, Ilara? I know. I faltered. unable to articulate the fear coiling in my chest. Marina's in danger because of me. If you die trying to save her, I won't. He said it with such certainty that I almost believed him. But if something goes wrong, if things go to hell, Russo has orders to get you somewhere safe. New identity, new life, everything you need. I don't want a new life. I want. The words caught in my throat. What do you want? His voice dropped, became almost intimate despite the audience around us. You, my traitorous mind whispered. I want you to come back alive. But I couldn't say that. Shouldn't feel that. So instead I said, I want Marina safe. And I want to help. You are helping. His hand found my chin, tilting my face up. You're giving me a reason to make sure this works. Then he was moving, giving orders, strapping on weapons with the casual efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. His men dispersed, each one a piece of a larger machine designed for violence. Dante checked his gun one final time, then looked at me. Stay here. Russo will keep you updated. If anything goes wrong, nothing will go wrong. I surprised myself with the fierceness in my voice. You're too smart for that. Too careful. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Never thought I'd find someone who understood that. He started toward the door, then paused. When this is over, we need to talk. About the network, about Moretti, about his eyes held mine everything. Then he was gone, and the war room felt suddenly empty despite the men remaining. Russo moved beside me, his massive presence oddly comforting. He'll be fine. Boss has survived worse. Has he done this before? Used himself as bait? More times than I can count. Russo pulled up the surveillance feeds. It's his style, controlled risk. He calculates every angle, every possibility. Then he walks in like he owns the world and makes everyone believe it. The screens flickered to life, multiple camera angles showing different parts of the factory. I watched as Dante's car pulled up to the front entrance, watched him step out alone, unarmed in appearance, my cardigan visible in his hand. He was magnificent and terrifying, every movement deliberate, every step radiating confidence and controlled danger. On another screen, I saw Marina still bound, still terrified, but alive. Guards surrounded her, weapons ready. Come on, Russo muttered, watching his own men move into position. Just a little longer. Dante disappeared into the building, and my heart climbed into my throat. Minutes stretched like hours. The screens showed movement, Russo's team engaging guards on the south side, drawing them away from Marina's position. Marco's team slipping through shadows on the north, approaching her location with surgical precision. Then the audio feed crackled to life, and I heard Dante's voice, clear and commanding. Moretti, I believe we have business to discuss. Luciano. Another voice, older, cultured, dripping with malice. You came alone. How refreshingly stupid. I came with what you want. The girl who solved your sequence. My blood froze. He wouldn't. He couldn't. Show me. On screen, Dante held up my cardigan. She's close. Waiting. But first, you release Marina DeLuca. She's not part of this. Moretti laughed, the sound making my skin crawl. Everything is part of this. The girl, the code, even you. You really think I didn't know you'd try something? Gunfire erupted sudden, explosive, filling the audio feed with chaos. Dante! I lunged toward the screens, but Russo held me back. Wait, just wait. On the monitors, Marco's team grabbed Marina, cutting her bonds as bullets flew around them. They moved with professional precision, dragging her toward the exit as guards fell or scattered. But where was Dante? The audio feed crackled with static, then his voice cut through, cold and lethal. You made a mistake, Alessandro. Did I? You assumed I'd come unprepared, that I valued the girl more than strategy. A pause. And when Dante spoke again, ice ran through his words. I value winning. Everything else is just leverage. A scream echoed through the speakers, someone in pain, then Moretti's voice, tight with barely controlled rage. You'll regret this, Luciano. I'll burn your entire organization to the ground. Starting with that mathematician you're so desperate to protect. You can try. Dante's voice grew closer to whatever mic was picking up the feed. But she's mine now, and I don't lose what's mine. More gunfire, shouting, then suddenly silence. Boss is clear. Russo's radio crackled. Marina's secure. We're pulling out. I collapsed into a chair, my legs suddenly unable to hold me. They'd done it. They'd actually done it. 20 minutes later, Dante walked into the war room, his suit jacket torn, a cut above his eyebrow bleeding, but alive, whole. Our eyes met across the room, and something passed between us. Relief, recognition, something deeper I wasn't ready to name. "Marina?" I asked. "Safe, shaken, but unharmed. She's being taken somewhere secure." He moved toward me, and I saw the adrenaline still coursing through him, the violence barely contained beneath his skin. "You were right. I am too smart to fail. You're also bleeding. Occupational hazard." He touched the cut absently, smearing blood across his fingers. "Small price for success." I stood, grabbed a first aid kit from the table, and before I could question the impulse, stepped close. "Sit. Let me clean that." He stared at me for a long moment, something unreadable in his expression. Then he sat, letting me tend to him. My hands trembled slightly as I cleaned the wound, hyper-aware of how close we were, how his eyes never left my face. The intimacy of the moment felt more dangerous than the faux violence that had preceded it. "You scared me," I admitted quietly. "When I heard the gunfire, when I couldn't see you on the screens, you care?" He said it like he was discovering something precious and fragile. "You actually care if I live or die?" "Of course I care. You just risked your life for my friend." "Not for your friend." His hand caught my wrist, stilling my movements. "For you. I did it for you." The admission hung between us, loaded with implications neither of us was ready to face. "Dante, I know." He released me, standing abruptly. "It's too soon, too complicated. You're here because you have no choice, and I'm—" He stopped, jaw tightening. "I'm the monster keeping you in a cage. You're not a monster." His laugh was bitter. "You don't know the things I've done, Ilara. The lives I've taken, the orders I've given. Tonight was nothing, a skirmish. If you knew the truth, then tell me." I stepped closer, my fear warring with something else. "Show me who you really are." He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw the war raging behind his eyes. The ruthless boss versus the man who'd held my cardigan like it was precious. The killer versus whoever he became when he touched my face with gentleness. "Not tonight," he said finally. "Tonight, you should rest. Tomorrow." His eyes darkened. "Tomorrow, we start decrypting Moretti's network, and you'll see exactly what kind of monster I am." He left before I could respond, and I stood alone in the war room, my heart racing, my mind spinning. I'd crossed a line tonight. I'd stopped seeing him as just my captor, and God help me, I wasn't sure I could go back. For 3 days, I lived in numbers. Dante had transformed an entire wing of the mansion into a workspace for me. Computers, whiteboards covering every wall, access to databases I definitely shouldn't have had. It was everything a mathematician could dream of, if that mathematician didn't mind that the data she was decrypting belonged to a criminal empire. But I'd made my choice. Marina was safe, relocated to a secure apartment under Dante's protection until this was over. And I was here, buried in Moretti's encryption, finding patterns in chaos. Dante worked beside me, not helping with the mathematics. He'd been right. Pure theory was beyond him, but providing context. Names, operations, the human element behind the numbers. We fell into a rhythm. Me at the whiteboard, him at the desk with his laptop, cross-referencing my findings with intelligence his network provided. It was domestic, in a strange, twisted way, and terrifyingly comfortable. There, I circled a sequence on the board, my third cup of coffee going cold beside me. That's the pattern. He's using prime factorization as the base, but he's layered it with, I paused, something clicking into place. Dates. He's using dates as variables. Dante looked up from his laptop. What kind of dates? Personal ones. Birthdays, anniversaries, significant events. I turned to face him, excitement pushing aside exhaustion. Moretti's encryption isn't just mathematical, it's emotional. Every key is tied to something that matters to him personally, which makes it nearly impossible to crack unless you know his history. Which we do. Dante's eyes gleamed. Russo, pull up everything we have on Moretti's family. Births, deaths, marriages, everything. Within an hour, we had a timeline of Alessandro Moretti's life laid out like a blueprint. And as I plugged those dates into the encryption sequence, the code began to unravel. "My God," I whispered, staring at the data appearing on screen. "This is everything. Financial transfers, communication logs, names of every operation, every person on his payroll. Enough to destroy him completely. Dante stood, coming to look over my shoulder. So close I could feel his heat, smell that dark cologne that had become familiar. You did it, Alara. You actually cracked the uncrackable. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt hollow. What happens now? You use this to dismantle his empire? Start a war? I use this to end the war before it truly begins. His hand rested on the desk beside mine, almost but not quite touching. Moretti's power comes from mystery, from the belief that his network is impenetrable. Once I prove it's not, once I start exposing his operations, cutting off his resources, he becomes just another old man with delusions of control. And the people caught in the crossfire will be offered a choice: work for me or walk away clean. He turned to face me fully. I'm not Moretti, Alara. I don't kill for sport or crush people for entertainment. I build empires, yes. I operate outside the law, absolutely. But I have rules. Lines I don't cross. What lines? His jaw tightened. I don't hurt innocents. I don't traffic people. I don't poison communities with drugs or prey on the desperate. His eyes held mine. Everything I do to maintain balance. To keep predators like Moretti from running unchecked. That's rationalization. You're still a criminal. Yes, no denial, no prettying it up. I am. And you're helping me, which makes you complicit. So either judge me and yourself together, or accept that morality isn't as black and white as your academic world pretends. The truth of it hit hard. I was complicit. Had been since the moment I'd agreed to decrypt the sequence. No amount of justification changed that. I should hate this, I said quietly. Hate you. Hate what I'm becoming. But you don't. He moved closer, eliminating the distance between us. You hate that you don't hate it. You hate that solving these puzzles makes you feel alive in a way teaching theory never did. You hate that you look at me and see, he paused, something vulnerable flickering across his face. Possibility instead of monster. Stop. My voice shook. Stop pretending you know what I feel. I'm not pretending. His hand lifted to my face, fingers tracing my jawline with devastating gentleness. I see you, Alara. Really see you. The brilliant mind, yes, but also the woman who's tired of being safe, who wants something more than the narrow path academia offered. You're drawn to this world the same way you're drawn to impossible problems because safe and easy bore you. You're wrong. But my body betrayed me, leaning into his touch. Am I? His thumb brushed my lower lip, and heat flooded through me. Then why are you still here? You could have demanded I let you go, could have found a way to escape, but you haven't, because some part of you, his voice dropped to a rough whisper, wants to stay. I'm afraid of you. The confession tore out of me. Good. You should be. His forehead touched mine, and we were breathing the same air, existing in the same impossible moment. I'm afraid of you too. Why? Because you make me want things I can't have. Make me question choices I've lived with for years. You walk into my world and suddenly everything I've built feels... He stopped, jaw clenching. Insufficient. Like I've been living half a life and didn't know it until you showed me what I was missing. My heart hammered against my ribs. Dante. The door burst open. Russo entered, his expression grim. Boss, we've got a problem. Dante stepped back, the moment shattering, but his eyes held mine for one more heartbeat before he turned. What is it? Moretti knows. About the decryption, about the girl cracking his codes. He just sent a message. Russo held out his phone. The image on screen made my blood run cold. It was me, a photo taken through the window of this very room. Me at the whiteboard, clearly visible, and beneath it, a message. She's brilliant. I'll enjoy breaking her. Slowly. How did he... I couldn't finish the sentence. Inside man. Dante's voice went arctic. Someone in my organization is feeding him information. He turned to Russo. Lock down the estate. No one comes. In or out. I want every single person vetted within the hour. And double Ilara's security. She doesn't leave my sight. On it. Russo left, already barking orders into his radio. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold. He's going to come for me, isn't he? He won't stop until I make him. Dante's hand found my shoulder, firm and grounding. This changes nothing except our timeline. We use what you've decrypted to hit him hard and fast, cut off his resources before he can mobilize. We go to war tonight. Tonight? Fear spiked through me. We don't have a choice. He turned me to face him. Moretti's desperate now. Desperate men do terrible things. The only way to keep you safe is to eliminate the threat completely. By killing him. If necessary. No hesitation. I won't apologize for protecting you, Alara. Won't pretend there's a gentle solution to this. Moretti wants you dead or worse. I want you alive. It's that simple. Nothing about this is simple. No. He agreed. But the choice is, I can let you go, hand you off to some federal protection program, let you disappear into a sanitized life where you'll always be looking over your shoulder. Or you can stay. Let me end this. Let me. His hand cupped my face. Keep you safe. The only way I know how. Through violence. Through absolute and overwhelming force. Yes. His eyes searched mine. I won't lie to you. Tonight will be brutal. People will die because I order it. And when it's done, when Moretti is no longer a threat, you'll know exactly what I'm capable of. You'll know the monster you've been sleeping under the same roof with. And then what? Then you decide. His thumb traced my cheekbone. Stay or go. Hate me or... He stopped, something raw flashing across his face. Or whatever this is between us becomes. There's nothing between us. The lie tasted bitter. Keep telling yourself that. He leaned close, his lips brushing my ear. But we both know you're lying. Then, he was gone, leaving me shaking and confused and terrified of how much I wanted to believe him. I turned back to the whiteboard, to the data that had sealed both our fates. In the margins, almost without thinking, I started calculating probabilities, success rates, casualty estimates, trying to quantify the violence about to unfold. But some equations had no clean solutions. Some problems could only be solved through fire and blood. And as I heard Dante giving orders in the next room, his voice cold and commanding, I realized I'd stopped trying to escape. I'd started trying to understand. And that was far more dangerous than any encryption Moretti could create. Midnight came like a blade. I watched from Dante's study, a room that had become our war room as his men geared up. Weapons, body armor, tactical equipment spread across tables like instruments of surgical violence. He'd insisted I stay behind, locked in the mansion's safe room, but I'd refused. If this is happening because of me, I need to see it. He'd stared at me for a long moment, then nodded. Then you'll see everything. No shields. No pretty lies. Now I sat in a leather chair, surrounded by monitors showing live feeds from his men's body cameras, and watched Dante Luciano go to war. The targets were surgical. 3 of Moretti's key operations, hit simultaneously. A money laundering front masquerading as an art gallery. A warehouse storing weapons and contraband. And a luxury penthouse where Moretti's top lieutenants held court. Dante's voice crackled through the comms, cold and absolute. Rules of engagement are simple. Anyone armed is a target. Anyone surrenders, they're detained. Moretti's inner circle, I want them alive. We're sending a message, not creating martyrs. The attacks began with brutal efficiency. On one screen, Russo's team breached the warehouse smoke grenades, suppressed gunfire, men falling before they could raise alarms. On another, Marco's group swept through the gallery, zip-tying terrified accountants while confiscating hard drives and files. But Dante had taken the penthouse himself. I watched him move through the building like death personified. His team covered corridors while he walked straight through the front door. Weapon drawn, every movement controlled and lethal. "Luciano!" someone shouted. Gunfire erupted. Dante didn't flinch. He returned fire with precision, 2 shots, center mass, and the shooter dropped. Another man emerged from a doorway, and Dante was on him in seconds, disarming him with brutal efficiency before slamming him against the wall. "Where's Moretti?" His voice was ice. "Go to hell." Dante's fist connected with the man's jaw. Wrong answer. "Where is he?" I flinched, unable to look away. This was the man who'd touched my face with gentleness, who'd decrypted centuries of art history to make conversation with me, and he was also this brutal, ruthless, capable of violence that made my stomach turn. The interrogation continued until the man broke, gasping out an address. Dante released him, letting him collapse to the floor before speaking into his comms. "Moretti's at the old cathedral on 5th. Marco, redirect your team. Russo, secure the warehouse and meet me there." "Boss, that's exposed ground." Russo's voice crackled. Could be a trap. It is a trap. Dante checked his weapon, reloading with practiced ease. Which is why I'm walking into it. Dante, no. I spoke before, thinking, my voice carrying through the open comms. He paused, looking directly into the camera on his vest. Elara, you shouldn't be listening to this. But I am. And you can't just, I can. And I will. His expression softened fractionally. Trust me, I've been doing this a long time. Then he was moving again, leaving the penthouse, his team forming around him like a lethal machine. The drive to the cathedral took 12 minutes that felt like hours. I watched through the body cam feeds as they approached an old, Gothic structure, abandoned for years, its stained glass windows dark and broken. Perimeter secure, one of Russo's men reported. No movement detected outside. He's inside, Dante's voice held certainty. Waiting. They entered through the main doors, and the cathedral's interior appeared on screen pews covered in dust, candles flickering throughout despite years of abandonment. And at the altar, standing like a priest before his congregation, was Alessandro Moretti. Luciano. His voice echoed through the empty space. I knew you'd come. You wanted to talk. Let's talk. Dante moved down the center aisle, weapon lowered but ready. Call off your hunt for the girl. This is between us. Is it? Moretti smiled, cold and cruel. Or is it about the fact that some brilliant little mathematician cracked what I spent years building? That she exposed the weakness in my design? He shook his head. She has to die. You know that. It's not personal, it's necessity. Everything is personal when you threaten what's mine. Ah, yes, yours. Moretti's laugh was ugly. You're no better than me, Dante. You just dress your obsession in prettier words. She's not your woman, she's your prisoner, your asset. You'll use her brilliance until it's depleted, then discard her like everyone else you've consumed building your empire. You don't know me. I know men like us don't get happy endings. We don't get the girl, the redemption, the peaceful life. Moretti spread his arms. We get power, control, and eventually, a bullet from someone younger, hungrier, more ruthless. Then you understand why this ends tonight. Moretti's expression shifted, and suddenly the cathedral exploded with movement. Men emerged from behind pillars, from the choir loft. Weapons raised. Dante's team returned fire instantly, the sacred space transforming into chaos. I watched, hands pressed to my mouth, as bullets shredded ancient wood and shattered what remained of holy glass. Dante moved, through it like a dancer fluid, precise, deadly. He took down 2 men, disarmed a third, all while advancing on Moretti. It's over, Alessandro. He had to shout over the gunfire. Your operations are burning. Your people are scattering. Surrender now, and I'll let you live. Live as what? A broken old man? Moretti pulled a gun from his jacket. I'd rather die a king. He raised the weapon not at Dante, but toward the camera, toward the feed I was watching through. But first, I'm sending you a message about the cost of loving dangerous things. He fired. The screen went black. Dante, I screamed, lunging toward the monitors, trying to find another angle, another camera feed, nothing but static. Then Russo's voice, tight with urgency. Boss is down. I repeat, boss is down. The world stopped. Everything. My breathing, my heartbeat. Time itself simply ceased. Dante was down. Dante was hurt. Dante might be moving him to extraction point, Russo continued. Someone call doctor. Chen, now. I ran. I didn't think, didn't plan. Just ran through the mansion toward the entrance where they'd bring him. Guards shouted at me to stop, to stay in the secure area, but I didn't care. Couldn't care. He'd walked into danger for me, had taken a bullet meant as a message about me, and I'd been too blind to see what was happening until it was too late. The cars screeched up to the entrance, and Russo was out first, barking orders. Then they were carrying him, Dante, covered in blood, unconscious, his face pale in the moonlight. Where? I could barely form words. Where is he hurt? Shoulder. Went clean through, missed the artery. Dr. Chen was already there, moving with professional calm. Get him to the medical suite. Now. They swept past me, and I followed, numb with shock. The next hours blurred together. Doctors, nurses, Dante apparently kept on staff, surgical equipment that shouldn't exist outside a hospital. I sat in the hallway outside, blood on my hands from where I'd touched his shoulder before they'd pulled me away. and waited. Russo sat beside me, his usual stoic expression cracked with worry. He'll be fine. Boss has been shot before. Survived worse. That's supposed to comfort me? It's supposed to be truth. He looked at me, really looked at me. You love him. I don't. We barely. The denial died on my lips. I don't know what I feel. Yes, you do. You're just too scared to say it. Before I could respond, Dr. Chen emerged. He's stable. The bullet did minimal damage. He'll be in pain for a few weeks, but he'll recover fully. Relief hit me so hard I nearly collapsed. Can I see him? He's sedated, but yes, briefly. The medical suite was pristine, filled with equipment that probably cost millions. And in the center, in a bed that looked too soft for the hard man lying in it, was Dante. He looked younger somehow, vulnerable. The ruthless mafia boss stripped away to reveal just a man who'd nearly died protecting me. I moved to his bedside, my hand finding his. His fingers were cold, and I rubbed them gently, trying to give back some of the warmth he'd shown me. You're an idiot, I whispered. Walking into that cathedral, taking that risk. Tears burned my eyes. You don't get to die. Not for me. Not before the words caught. Not before I figure out what this is, what we are, what we could be. His eyes fluttered open just barely, drugged and unfocused. Elara? I'm here. I squeezed his hand. I'm right here. Moretti? Dead. Your men confirmed it. It's over. Something like satisfaction crossed his face. Good. You're safe now. Free. His eyes started to close again. You can leave. Go back to your life. Forget this nightmare. What if I don't want to? His eyes opened again, searching my face with whatever clarity the drugs allowed. Don't want what? Don't want. To leave? To forget. To go back to a life that feels empty now that I've seen. I stopped, my heart hammering. Now that I've known you. You don't mean that. You're just... He winced, pain cutting through the sedation. In shock. Grateful. It'll pass. Stop telling me what I feel. The words burst out, raw and honest. Stop deciding for me what I should want. You've given me choices at every step, stay or go, help or refuse, live in your world or walk away. So let me choose this. Choose what? I leaned close, my lips near his ear. You, this, whatever terrifying, dangerous, impossible thing is happening between us, let me choose it. His hand tightened around mine, and when he spoke, his voice was rough with more than pain. You're choosing hell, Elara. My world doesn't have happy endings. Then we'll make our own ending. I kissed him. Gentle, careful of his injuries, but absolutely certain. His lips were warm, and for a moment, the ruthless mafia boss disappeared entirely. When I pulled back, his eyes held wonder and fear in equal measure. Stay, he whispered. When I wake up, be here. I'm not going anywhere. He smiled a real, unguarded smile that transformed his face before the sedation pulled him under. I sat beside him as dawn broke, our hands entwined, and made my choice. The mathematician had solved her most complex equation yet. The answer was him. Dante woke to pain and the scent of jasmine. For a moment, he couldn't process it. Pain was familiar, expected after a gunfight, but the jasmine, the warmth of a hand in his, the soft sound of breathing beside him that was unprecedented. He opened his eyes to find Elara asleep in the chair next to his bed, her head resting on their joined hands, dark hair spilling across the white sheets. She'd stayed, all night, apparently, judging by the way early morning light painted her features in gold. She was beautiful like this, unguarded, at peace despite sleeping in an uncomfortable chair beside a man who'd pulled her into his violent world. He should wake her, send her away, give her the escape route she deserved. Instead, he watched her sleep and let himself want impossible things. She stirred, her eyes opening slowly. When she saw him awake, her face transformed relief and something warmer flooding her expression. You're awake. How do you feel? Her hand tightened around his, like I've been shot. He managed to smile despite the pain radiating from his shoulder. But I've had worse. That's becoming a concerning pattern. She sat up, and he immediately missed her closeness. Dr. Chen said you need to rest for at least a week. No work, no stress, no running my organization. He tried to sit up, immediately regretted it as pain lanced through him. Stop. Her hands were on his chest, gentle but firm, pushing him back down. You have people for that. Russo is handling everything. The only thing you need to do is heal. I'm not good at being inactive. Learn. Her eyes held his, and he saw steel beneath the softness. You took a bullet protecting me. The least you can do is let me protect you now from yourself, if necessary. Something in his chest tightened that had nothing to do with his injury. You kissed me last night. Color rose in her cheeks. You remember that? I'd remember that even if I were dead. His good hand lifted to her face, cupping her cheek. Tell me it wasn't just gratitude or pity. Tell me it was real. She leaned into his touch. Terrifying and probably insane, but real. You could still leave, you know. Moretti's gone. The threat's eliminated. I'd give you money, protection, a new identity. Stop trying to get rid of me. I'm trying to give you a choice that isn't tainted by obligation or fear. I had that choice the moment I solved that equation in the restaurant. I've had it every day since. She moved closer, her fingers tracing patterns on his uninjured arm. I keep choosing you. Stop being surprised by it. I've never... He paused, struggling for words. No one's chosen me before. My world, yes. My power, absolutely. But not me. Not the man beneath all of it. Then they were idiots. She said it with such certainty that he almost believed her. The man beneath it all is brilliant, complicated, capable of both violence and tenderness. He's someone who reads ancient philosophy and encrypts his soul behind equations because vulnerability feels more dangerous than bullets. You see too much. I see exactly enough. She leaned down, her lips brushing his forehead. Now rest. I'll be here when you wake up. Promise? Promise. He let himself believe her, let himself drift back into medicated sleep with her hand in his. The next days blurred together in a haze of pain medication and stolen moments. Alara became his constant reading to him from books in his library, bringing him meals, arguing with him about mathematics and philosophy until his head hurt more than his shoulder. She was brilliant and stubborn and absolutely refused to let him push her away. You're not protecting me by being cold, she said on the third day, catching him deliberately creating distance. You're just being a coward. Excuse me? You face down Moretti in a cathedral with a dozen guns pointed at you. But one woman saying she cares about you, and you retreat like a scared child. She crossed her arms. I expected better from the great Dante Luciano. You don't know what you're asking for. A life with me would be complicated, dangerous, absolutely unconventional. She moved to sit on the edge of his bed. I know. I'm a mathematician, Dante. I've calculated all the variables, weighed the risks, and I'm still here. You could die. People in my world, the ones I care about, they become targets. I was already a target. I'll always be a target now that I can decrypt advanced systems. The only question is whether I face that alone or with someone who'd burn down the world to keep me safe. Her hand found his. Stop trying to make this decision for me. He stared at her, this impossible woman who'd crashed into his carefully controlled life and shattered every wall he'd built. I'm not good at this. At caring. At being soft. I don't need soft. I need honest. She leaned closer. Can you give me that? Yes. The word felt like surrender and liberation at once. I can give you that. She kissed him, then deeper than that first tentative kiss, full of promise and heat and dangerous certainty. His good arm wrapped around her, pulling her closer despite the pain it caused, because having her near was worth any amount of discomfort. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, she smiled against his lips. That wasn't so hard, was it? You're going to be the death of me. Probably. She settled beside him, careful of his injuries. But what a way to go. For the first time in longer than he could remember, Dante Luciano laughed. Really laughed, unguarded and genuine, and absolutely terrified of how much this woman had come to mean to him. But terror was familiar territory. And this time, he was brave enough not to run. Alara fell asleep against his side, her breathing evening out, and he held her while the city hummed beyond his windows. He'd built an empire on calculated risks and controlled violence, had survived decades in a world where weakness meant death. But this brilliant, stubborn woman choosing him despite every reason not to this, was the most dangerous gamble of his life. And for the first time, he hoped he'd live long enough to see how it played out. Outside, Russo stood guard, a slight smile crossing his normally stoic face as he monitored the security feeds. The boss had finally found something worth protecting beyond power, and God help anyone who tried to take it from him. 2 weeks later, Dante's shoulder had healed enough for him to return to work, and Alara discovered what it truly meant to be with a man who ran an empire built on shadows. She'd moved her workspace into his study, her whiteboards and equations sharing space with his surveillance monitors and encrypted files. It was strange, this blending of their worlds. She'd decrypt a complex algorithm while he negotiated territory disputes. She'd explain theoretical mathematics while he approved or denied requests that carried life or death weight. "You're too lenient," she commented one afternoon, reading over his shoulder as he reviewed a request for clemency from one of his lower-level soldiers who'd been caught skimming. "He has a family. Kids." Dante's fingers moved across the keyboard. "I'll dock his pay, reassign him somewhere he can't access funds, but I won't kill a man for making a desperate mistake. And if he does it again, then we revisit the conversation." He glanced at her. "You think I'm soft? I think you're more human than you pretend." She kissed his temple, a gesture that had become natural over the past days. "It's not weakness to show mercy. In my world, it can be." But he approved the clemency. Anyway, these moments of gentleness were counterbalanced by reminders of the violence that underpinned everything. Alara learned to recognize the tension in Dante's shoulders when a situation required his direct intervention, learned the difference between business calls and the kind that made his voice drop to lethal calm. She was learning him both the man and the monster and finding the line between them thinner than she'd imagined. "I need to handle something tonight," he said during dinner, his tone careful. "Something you shouldn't see." "What kind of something?" "The kind that keeps people loyal through fear instead of respect." He set down his fork. "There's been talk. Whispers that Moretti's death has made me look weak, that protecting you was emotional rather than strategic. I need to remind certain people why questioning me is a fatal mistake." Ice settled in Alara's stomach. "You're going to kill someone." "I'm going to make an example. No apology." "It's necessary. This world respects strength, Alara. Show weakness, and you'll drown in the blood of those who smell opportunity." I can't," she struggled for words. "I know." He stood, moving to her side of the table, kneeling so they were eye level. "This is what I am. What I have to be to survive, to protect what's mine. I won't apologize for it. But I also won't force you to witness it. Where does that leave us?" Her voice shook. "I care about you, God. I'm falling for you, but I can't just ignore the violence. I'm not asking you to ignore it. I'm asking you to decide if you can live with it." His hands found hers. "Because this is forever, Alara. If you stay, you're choosing all of it. The gentleness and the brutality. The man who reads philosophy with you, and the one who orders executions to maintain control." Tears burned her eyes. "How do you live with yourself? With the contradiction? By knowing that without the monster, the man you're falling for wouldn't exist. The empire I built protects thousands of people. The violence I commit prevents worse violence from men with no conscience at all." He wiped a tear from her cheek. "I'm not a hero, but I'm not Moretti either. I exist in the gray space between, and I've made peace with that. I don't know if I can. Then maybe you should go." The words clearly cost him, his jaw tightening. "Before you're in so deep that leaving destroys us both." She looked at this man, this complicated, dangerous, heartbreakingly honest man, and felt the weight of the choice pressing down on her. "I need time. To think. To—" She stopped, her mind already calculating variables, weighing outcomes. "I need to see it. The reality of your world without filters." Dante's eyes widened. "Alara, no. You don't want— stop deciding for me." She stood, her own frustration boiling over. "You keep saying I have a choice, but you won't let me make an informed one. If I'm going to stay, I need to understand fully what that means, including the parts you want to hide from me. You'll hate me. Maybe. Or maybe I'll understand you better." She held his gaze. "Let me see all of you, then I'll decide." He stared at her for a long moment, war raging behind his eyes. Finally, he nodded. "Okay, but on one condition: if at any point you want to leave, if it becomes too much, you tell me, and we stop immediately." Agreed. Midnight found them in a warehouse on the edge of Dante's territory, the kind of place where concrete met shadows and questions went to die. Alara stood beside Russo, both of them positioned behind a one-way mirror that looked into a room where Dante stood across from a man tied to a chair. She recognized him from Dante's files, Vincent Chen, one of his mid-level operators who'd been caught selling information to a rival family. "This is your chance." Dante's voice came through speakers, calm and cold. "Tell me who you've been feeding information to, and I'll make this quick." "Vincent," spat Blood. "You've gone soft, Luciano. Everyone sees it. Chasing after some college girl like a lovesick fool." Dante's fist connected with Vincent's jaw with controlled precision. Not rage calculation. Wrong answer. Ilara flinched but forced herself to keep watching. The interrogation continued, methodical, brutal, effective. Dante extracted names, dates, details of the betrayal, with the efficiency of someone who'd done this countless times. And through it all, his expression never changed. Cold, controlled, absolute. This was the monster. This was the man who ruled through fear when necessary. When Vincent finally gave up everything, Dante stepped back. "Thank you for your cooperation. So you'll let me live?" Hope flickered in Vincent's voice. "No." Dante pulled his gun. "But I'll make it quick, as promised." Ilara turned away before the shot rang out, her stomach churning. Russo's hand steadied her shoulder. "Breathe," he said quietly. "Just breathe." Minutes later, Dante entered the observation room, and Ilara saw him properly gunned. Still holstered, blood on his knuckles. The ruthless boss she'd only seen glimpses of before. "I'll have someone take you back to the house," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "No." She turned to face him fully. "We need to talk. Here. Now." He dismissed Russo with a gesture, and they were alone with the weight of what she'd witnessed. "You're going to leave." He said it like fact, not question. "I understand. I'll arrange. I'm not leaving." He froze. "You just watched me execute a man. I watched you do what you said you'd do. What you have to do in your world." She moved closer, and he actually flinched like he expected her to recoil. "I'm not going to lie and say it doesn't sicken me, that I'll ever be comfortable with the violence. But I also understand now." "Understand what?" "That you're not cruel. You're efficient. That man betrayed you, endangered your organization, and by extension, endangered me. And you did what was necessary to send a message." She reached for his hand, the one with bloody knuckles. "You're a killer, Dante, but you're not a monster. There's a difference. Most people wouldn't see one. I'm not most people." She cleaned the blood from his knuckles with a cloth she'd brought. "I'm a woman who's falling in love with a man who exists in shades of gray. Who protects fiercely and loves," she paused, meeting his eyes, "if he lets himself." "Ilara," his voice broke. "I'm staying. Not because I approve of everything you do, but because I understand why you do it. Because the man who reads poetry with me and the one who just executed a traitor are the same person, and I'm choosing both." He pulled her into his arms, careful of his healing shoulder, but desperate nonetheless. "You're insane, absolutely insane to choose this. Probably." She held him tighter. "But I've always been drawn to impossible problems, and you, Dante Luciano, are the most impossible one yet." He kissed her, then fierce and possessive and raw with emotion he'd kept locked away for years. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against hers. "I love you," he whispered. "God help me. I love you. I love you too." The words felt like jumping off a cliff. "Even though I shouldn't, even though it's insane. Especially because it's insane." They stood in that warehouse, in the aftermath of violence, and chose each other completely. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't sane, but it was real. And for both of them, that was enough. The return to the mansion felt different, charged with an electricity that had nothing to do with danger and everything to do with the admission that still hung between them. "I love you." 3 words that changed everything. Dante had been quiet during the car ride, his hand never leaving hers, thumb tracing patterns on her palm that sent heat spiraling through her. The look in his eyes promised things that made her breath catch possession, desire, a hunger he'd kept carefully controlled until now. They entered through the private entrance to his wing, the part of the mansion Ilara had never seen. His personal sanctuary, separate from business, from the world. "I've never brought anyone here," he said, leading her through rooms that spoke of wealth and carefully curated solitude. "This space is mine alone. Why show me now?" He turned to face her, his eyes dark with intent. "Because you've seen everything else. The violence, the business, the monster. Now I want you to see the man. Just the man. No armor, no performance." His bedroom was surprisingly simple. Expensive, Yes, but understated. Books on nightstands, art on the walls that spoke to personal taste rather than investment value, a space that felt lived in rather than staged. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "It's yours." He moved closer, his hands finding her waist. "All of this. All of me. If you want it, I want it." Her hands slid up his chest, feeling his heartbeat accelerate. "I want you." The kiss was different this time, no longer tentative or careful. This was claiming. His mouth moved against hers with barely restrained hunger, hands threading through her hair, pulling her closer until no space existed between them. "Tell me to stop," he whispered against her lips. "Tell me if this is too fast. If you need, I need you." She cut off his words with another kiss, pouring every ounce of want and fear and love into it. "Now, Dante. Please." Something broke in him, the last remnant of control shattering. He lifted her effortlessly, mindful of his healing shoulder, carrying her to the bed. His body covered hers, warm and solid and absolutely focused on her. "I've wanted this," he murmured against her throat, lips trailing fire along her pulse point. "Wanted you since that first night when you solved the impossible and looked at me like I was the real equation to crack." His hands were everywhere, learning her, worshipping her, discovering what made her gasp and arch into his touch. Clothes disappeared with surprising efficiency, and then it was just skin against skin, heat building into something that felt inevitable and perfect. "You're mine," he whispered, his eyes locked on hers as their bodies aligned. "Say it. Say you're mine. I'm yours." The words came easy, natural. "And you're mine. Always." He kissed her deeply as they moved together, finding a rhythm that felt like coming home. "Forever, Alara. This is forever." The world narrowed to just them, sensation, emotion, connection that went beyond physical. Every touch carried meaning. Every kiss was a promise. Every whispered word of love was a vow. When the pleasure crested, it crashed over them both with an intensity that left her trembling in his arms. Dante held her through it, murmuring words in Italian, beautiful, possessive things that she didn't need to translate to understand. Afterward, they lay tangled together, heartbeats slowly returning to normal. His fingers traced idle patterns on her bare shoulder while she mapped the scars on his chest. Evidence of a violent life survived. "No regrets?" he asked quietly. "None." She kissed one of the scars. "You? How could I regret the best thing that's ever happened to me?" His arms tightened around her. "You're it for me, Ilara. No one else. Nothing else. Just you." That's a lot of pressure. But she smiled against his chest. "You can handle it. You solved the Marconi sequence in 17 minutes. You can certainly handle loving a complicated criminal." She laughed, the sound light and genuine. "When you put it that way." They stayed like that, wrapped in each other, until dawn painted the sky in shades of pink and gold. And for the first time since entering Dante's world, Ilara felt truly safe. Not because the danger had passed, it would always exist in the shadows of his life, but because she wasn't facing it alone anymore. The next weeks fell into a new rhythm. Ilara continued her work decrypting systems, but now for legitimate purposes, helping Dante's lawyers build cases against truly dangerous criminals, exposing human trafficking rings, tracking down predators who operated in the same shadows he did. "If I'm going to use my skills in your world," she'd told him, "I want to do some good with them." He'd agreed without hesitation, redirecting resources to help her identify targets worth pursuing. The mathematician and the mafia boss, working together to tip the scales towards something resembling justice. But there were still moments when the reality of his world crashed in, when violence became necessary, when old enemies resurfaced, when Dante had to make choices that left blood on his hands. Ilara learned to navigate those moments, learned when to push him to talk and when to simply hold him, learned the difference between the guilt that meant he was still human and the coldness that meant he'd shut down to survive. "I worry about what this is doing to you," he confessed one night, after a particularly brutal confrontation with a rival family. "About how my darkness is staining you. We all have darkness, Dante. You've just had to embrace yours to survive." She cupped his face, forcing him to look at her. "But you're not defined by it. You're defined by the choices you make with it. And you choose to protect, to build, to love. That's not stained. That's beautiful. You see me through rose-colored glasses. I see you clearly. All of you. And I love all of it." He kissed her, then soft and reverent and full of wonder that someone like her could love someone like him. They'd found an impossible balance, the mathematician and the monster, the academic and the criminal. Two people who should never have worked but somehow did. It wasn't perfect. It would never be simple, but it was theirs. And that made it everything. 6 months after solving a puzzle on a napkin, Elara Thorne stood on the balcony of Dante's estate and watched the city lights twinkle like captured stars. So much had changed. The university had accepted her resignation reluctantly, but accepted it nonetheless. She'd published 2 papers under a pseudonym, groundbreaking work in cryptography that was already reshaping the field. And she'd built a life in the shadows with a man who ruled them. Thinking too loud, Dante's voice came from behind her, his arms wrapping around her waist as he joined her on the balcony. I can hear your brain calculating from inside. Just reflecting. She leaned back against his chest, fitting perfectly against him, on how one equation changed everything. Best equation I've ever seen. He kissed her temple. Though I might be biased, they stood in comfortable silence, watching the city that was both their playground and their battlefield. In the distance, sirens wailed a reminder that the world kept spinning, kept generating chaos and beauty, in equal measure. Russo told me you approved funding for that new women's shelter, Elara said. The one helping trafficking survivors. You suggested it. I just allocated resources. You do more than you let people know. The scholarship funds, the community programs, all of it hidden behind shell corporations, so no one connects it to Dante Luciano. She turned in his arms to face him. Why hide the good you do? Because the moment my enemies know what I care about, they'll try to destroy it. His hand cupped her face. Better to let them think I'm all monster. Keeps the things that matter safe. I'm a thing that matters and you haven't hidden me. No. His expression grew serious. You're different. You're the line in the sand. Everyone knows touch you, and I'll burn the world down. There's protection in that visibility. And danger? Always. He didn't lie to her, never had. But you're brilliant enough to handle it. Strong enough to survive it. We've proven that. It was true. Over the past months, they'd faced challenges together, rivals who tested Dante's resolve, enemies who tried to use Elara as leverage, moments when violence erupted into their carefully controlled existence. But they'd survived it all. More than survived. They'd thrived. I got something for you, Dante said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Elara's breath caught. Dante, it's not what you think. Well, not yet. He opened the box to reveal a key, ornate, antique, beautiful. This is the key to the East Wing Library, the private collection I told you about. First editions, rare manuscripts, mathematics texts that most people don't even know exist. You're giving me access to your secret library? I'm giving you everything. He closed her fingers around the key. The library, the resources, my complete trust. Use them however you want. Decrypt codes, publish research, teach if you want to. I'll support whatever you choose. Tears burned her eyes. I choose this, us, building something together. Even knowing what it costs, what it will always cost. Especially knowing that. She kissed him softly. I'm not naive anymore, Dante. I understand your world. The violence, the moral complexity, the constant danger. But I also see the good you do. The lives you protect, the balance you maintain. You're not a hero, but you're not a villain either. I'm a man who loves you. He said it simply, like it was the only truth that mattered. Everything else is just details. Important details. Important details, he conceded, but secondary to this. To us, they kissed on that balcony, surrounded by night and stars and the city that had brought them together through chaos and mathematics. Two people who should never have worked, creating something beautiful from impossible circumstances. 1 year later, Elara stood in front of a classroom, not a university lecture hall, but a converted warehouse in Dante's territory. 20 students sat before her, all from the neighborhood, all brilliant minds who couldn't afford traditional education. Mathematics is power, she told them. Passion evident in every word. It's the language of the universe, the key to understanding everything from quantum mechanics to cryptography. And you all have access to that power. You just need to learn how to use it. In the back of the room, Dante watched with pride evident on his face. This program, free education for gifted students from disadvantaged backgrounds, had been Elara's idea. He'd simply provided the resources. After class, she found him waiting. How'd I do? You were magnificent. He pulled her close. They're lucky to learn from you. We're lucky we can do this. Use your resources for something meaningful. Our resources, he corrected. You're as much a part of this empire now as I am. Partner in everything. It was true. Over the past year, Ilara had become integral to Dante's operations, not just as the woman he loved, but as a strategist, problem solver, and moral compass. She'd helped him reshape parts of his organization, focusing resources on ventures that did less harm, more good. They'd never be legitimate. That bridge had been burned long before she arrived. But they could be better, could use the power they had to create positive change alongside the necessary violence. I have something to ask you, Dante said as they walked to the car. And you can say no. There's no pressure. You're making me nervous. He stopped, turning to face her fully. Then he actually knelt on the sidewalk while his security team discreetly looked away. Ilara Thorne, you crashed into my life like a comet and changed everything. You saw the monster and chose to love the man. You took my darkness and found light in it. You're my partner, my conscience, my everything. He pulled out a ring, a beautiful sapphire surrounded by diamonds. I'm a criminal, a killer. I operate in shadows and make choices most people would condemn. But I love you with a ferocity that terrifies me. Marry me. Choose this life, this love, forever. Tears streamed down her face as she pulled him to his feet. Yes, 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring on her finger, then kissed her with a passion that stopped traffic and made his security team smile despite their professional demeanors. You're mine, he whispered against her lips. Forever, she agreed. In the shadows and the light, in the violence and the peace, wherever this takes us. It's going to be complicated. I'd expect nothing less. She laughed through her tears. I fell in love with you by solving an impossible equation. Our entire relationship has been complicated. And worth it? Every single moment. Epilogue, 5 years later. The nursery was filled with soft light and the sound of a baby's gentle breathing. Ilara stood beside the crib, watching their daughter sleep, Sofia Luciano, named after Dante's mother, inheriting her father's dark hair and her mother's brilliant mind. Dante wrapped his arms around her from behind, both of them watching the small miracle they'd created. She's perfect, he whispered, like her mother. She's going to be trouble, Ilara countered. Like her father, God help us both. They stood in comfortable silence, two people who'd found love in the most unlikely circumstances, now raising a child in a world that straddled light and darkness. It wasn't the life Ilara had imagined while studying at university. It wasn't the fairy tale ending society approved of, but it was theirs, built on trust and truth, on accepting all parts of each other, on choosing love even when it was complicated and dangerous and absolutely insane. No regrets? Dante asked, the question he still posed sometimes. Not one. She turned in his arms to kiss him. You? Only that I didn't find you sooner. Through the window the city stretched out before them, their city now, their kingdom of shadows and light. And, somewhere in its depths, a new generation was learning mathematics and possibility from a woman who'd proven that even the most dangerous equations could have beautiful solutions. The mathematician and the monster. The professor and the crime lord. Two halves of an impossible whole. Forever.